And this comes from IMAS, as you know, it's the Investment Management Association of Singapore, together with Fidelity International. And the title of the challenge is Creating Trust in Sustainable Investing with Blockchain Technology. Very, very exciting. And our speaker today will be Mr. Prasad. Hi, Prasad. He's the Global Head of Emerging Technology Strategy at Fidelity International. I'd like to welcome Prasad to begin his presentation. Welcome, Prasad.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you. And good morning, good afternoon to everyone that's on the call. And it's a pleasure to be presenting to you today. As Billy introduced, Fidelity International, we are an investment management company. We offer investment solutions across individuals, institutions, and advisors. One of the things that has changed in the industry over the last few years, as many of you might have read in public press, everybody is interested in how we address the sustainability goals that have been published by the United Nations. Now, we are a firm that invests clients' money into companies. We would love to know how sustainable their practices are, whether their practices are actually built to last, and whether they have any kind of resilience across social and environmental changes that are happening around the world. Now, in order for us to do all of this, we require access to specific information, which I think recently got announced by the World Economic Forum as stakeholder capitalism metrics. The data points from all of these companies that subscribe to this become very important for us to consider in our investment thesis. Now, if we reflect back on the problem statement that's on the screen, when you have so many companies that have not been used to publishing those type of metrics in the kind of environment that we are in, we're looking at whether a blockchain solution can help better establish the traceability. Where did the data come from across the supply chain? Now, if I take an example of, let us say, a palm oil manufacturer or a tea manufacturer, the company that we invest in may be the company that is actually selling the final product. But what happened to everything in the supply chain that went on before it? Where did the actual origin of that supply chain begin? How sustainable are the practices at that point in the supply chain? Because when you think of an investment model for a company, any impact to anywhere in that supply chain could potentially impact the value of the company we invested. It could also impact the sustainability quotient of that company that we invested. So how do we establish a trusted and traceable value chain of all of those data points in that supply chain that we are looking for? That's essentially what we are looking for in the problem statement, and that's essentially the solution that we would be looking into. Now, within this, what is it that we are specifically looking for? We are looking for companies that may have a product that is already ready, or a prototype is available on commercialized blockchain, where we can establish that very traceability that we were talking about now. Now, we need to be able to determine the sustainability aspects and some of the features that marry up with what a blockchain can provide, plus what we are actually looking for from the companies themselves, is that the data that is hosted on the blockchain becomes a single point of truth. Because you can imagine companies can publish their reports. There might be just their internal opinion about it. We may want that data to be verified by somebody else. And that verified information, if it is available for everybody to analyze on a distributed ledger, it becomes a single source of truth, so that we understand that this is the absolute truth about what that company has achieved in this particular space. We're looking for tokenization to a certain extent to incentivize the stakeholders to comply with these project goals, or for that matter, access the services that are provided by this. And the access could be to retrieve and review that verified information that has been posted on the blockchain. It also can reduce the reliance on intermediaries. Typically, this is a standard challenge with any value chain where the data providers are not standardized. And having a tokenized approach allows us to reduce that reliance. And as a consequence, it brings about a little bit more standardization. And with standardization, you can start to look at automating the various processes that live out there. We also are looking for some kind of a contract management system to verify and track the performance of valid binding versions of the smart contracts across the value chain for the stakeholders. The parties that are involved in this end-to-end chain know that those contracts are valid, which will allow for hopefully a more streamlined and transparent operations between each stage of the value chain. So for example, if a shipping company needs to partner with a logistic company and they know that the contracts that are established on this chain are all trusting and they're happy with what is happening, that allows for a great level of automation and a great level of speed as well in terms of how those operations are executed. Last but not the least, we look for the underlying governance and the alignment of the protocol layer that provides access to legitimate. This is kind of having established a single source of truth. It does give some legitimacy to the data, something that has been standardized, and the latest information on the project and all the stakeholders. So if someone comes looking for an information point on the blockchain, they all get what the latest information is, and they are able to actually include whatever details that they need to on this. Now, in terms of the solution itself, we don't have any restriction on where the problem solvers are and who may choose to apply for this challenge. The only thing is that I think you will understand a little bit more about this a little later on in this presentation. The solution should be capable of being demonstrated in Singapore. Now, and this is the reason why it needs to be demonstrated in Singapore. I think we have a 20,000 Singapore dollar prize money for each winner of this challenge. And this is done through the IMAS Digital Accelerator program. And as a consequence, that is something that is based out of Singapore, which is why we want it to be demonstrable in Singapore. The other advantage is the companies that choose to participate in this challenge can actually partner with FIL. We have been in this business for a very long time with deep industry knowledge, and we are also recognized for our commitment in sustainable investment. So we come with deep domain expertise. We come with having experimented with this in a few different areas. So we have an understanding of what may work, what may not work, what clients are actually looking for, and what might be appealing to the way the solution needs to be created. We can offer the exposure to almost, I would put it as a global scene. So we don't invest in companies just in Asia or just in a specific country. Our investment function actually looks at companies globally. So we bring that expertise, but at the same time, that expertise can help in understanding the global potential of the solution and also what it might take to scale the solution on a global basis. So co-creating the solution that is applicable for not just one jurisdiction, but perhaps additional regulated environments and countries. Because one thing that we do know in this current state is that different countries have different approaches to some of these, and therefore we may need to address them in a very specific way for different jurisdictions. We offer the opportunity to collaborate with IMAS and reach a greater community because once we've done this through the Investment Management Association of Singapore, you have access to the other financial institutions that are out there as well. So we do believe that a solution of this nature will eventually be appealing to multiple financial organizations because everybody would be looking to respond to the sustainable goals that have been developed by the United Nations and now pretty much being accepted by many companies around the world in this particular domain. And last but not the least, there is an opportunity to pitch to an industry audience. The IMAS Digital Accelerator Program Showcase is for the middle of 2021. More details can be made available. They are available on their website as well, the URL for which is on this page. How do we evaluate the chosen solution? I think you might have seen a very similar evaluation criteria with some of the other presenters today. So I'll not go into enormous amounts of detail because I have been listening to the last 4 or 5, and I do think that the same criteria has been explained by others. But the same thing is important for us as well. What's the solution fit, right? Does the proposed solution address the problem statement that we have in an effective manner? How ready is it? Can we take it to market today? Do you already have evidence that suggests that this can scale either in terms of volume or in terms of its global applicability? And what's the advantage the solution actually brings? What's the true innovation within the product? Does it actually make use of the new technologies in the market? And is there a potential for it to generate new intellectual property, which might give it an edge? And last but not the least, because we are from that industry, what are the key benefits this can offer to the asset management industry. Quite sometimes you may actually build a solution for one problem and then realize that it can apply to a few other use cases as well, because the underlying foundation is exactly the same for both. And last but not the least, we would look at the kind of the company it is itself. Does the product have user and revenue traction, just to see how viable it is, how much of a buy-in it already has in the marketplace, and get a feeling for the type of clients and use cases that you already support. That's about it. I think the last date for all the submissions is, I think, as some of the others have presented, it's the 30th of July. And if the IMDA extend the deadline, then we will absolutely respect that. But if that's the deadline, that's by when we will kind of have a cutoff and start evaluating the solutions. That was about it. I hope that was a very quick whiz through of the problem statement and what it is, what's in it for you. Quite open to questions now. I believe we have.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prasad. Yes, we are indeed ready for Q&A. It was a very, very clear and very concise presentation. We have our first question from the floor today, and it comes from Sheena. And Sheena is saying, "Hi, Prasad. Thank you for sharing. May I understand, for the stakeholders involved in the contract management solution, would Fidelity have the influence to have them onboarded, even if they are not directly under FIL's current portfolio, like a packaging company?" Would you be able to answer this question?
So I think it's a tricky one, but I'll try and answer it the best way that I can. The influence will probably happen through the company that we invest in, instead of directly with the packages. So at the end of the day, when we are an investor in a company, we obviously have some shareholder voting, and there are things that we could influence through that. And everybody knows now that big companies, they do need to kind of shine the right kind of light on the whole thing around sustainable investing. And as a consequence, there will be that amount of influence that we can get. But can we directly ask companies in the supply chain to do that? The level of influence there will not be the same as the level of influence we'll have with the company that we are investing in.
Okay. Thank you. Sheena, I hope that answers your question. We have another question that just came in for Prasad, and it says, "How do you propose to standardize the contracts?"
This is going to be an area of evolution. I mean, we don't underestimate the challenge here, especially when the underlying data metrics and the way they are reported are yet to kind of evolve into a standardized model. The industry is in that stage where things are being accepted in terms of what the standards are, but how companies respond to that standard is still not fully mature. So there is an opportunity for us to be a thought leader as well as a solution leader in this space. We have internal thoughts on how those things could be standardized, but that's not been fully tested in the market. So that's one of the opportunities that the participant companies would have. What would the shape of these standard contracts look like? There is an opportunity to co-develop that. And we have a few opinions of ours, but we are equally dependent on what the other partners bring to us. And I think collectively, we should be able to come up with something that is unique for the industry. It's not a mature market yet. So we have the opportunity to define some of that standardization. And that's where domain expertise from us, solution expertise from whoever we are partnering with, hopefully makes a great mix.
Sounds like a very good opportunity to actually standardize the market in that sense. Prasad, I do have one question from myself, just to check. I noticed that in your business challenge statement on the OIP website, you had a use case, a suggested use case in which a customer, ESG investor who's a customer of FIL, actually uses the platform to check on the traceability of the products, the tea products of a company that he's interested in. So I just want to confirm, is this platform meant only for internal staff to use, or also for your customers as well? And if so, how will your customers access this platform?
So brilliant question, Billy. I think the idea is for this to be used both by internal, because we will have internal research analysts, we will have internal portfolio managers who would need to make investment decisions based on this data. So they will be accessing it absolutely. But it's equally important for our customers to trust us. When they said, Fidelity, we are giving you this much amount of money to invest on our behalf, and we want you to meet these sustainability goals, we can easily kind of, we can give them a report. Yes, we have met all those goals and this is what we have done. But if the customers now have access to this platform through some kind of an MI or a reporting ecosystem, where they say, okay, you invested in company X at the top end of the chain, and you say that they met all the sustainability goals, looking through the value chain, through that web interface or MI or reporting, if they can say, okay, you made the decision here, I can see that, okay, there are 4 steps in this supply chain, and each of those supply chain have delivered the data sets to prove that they are in that range. And yes, you've made the correct decision. That gives confidence to our end investor, be they a pension fund, be they an investor like you and me, that, okay, they claim to be sustainable in their investment thesis, but I can see the proof as well. So that is us establishing complete transparency and trust with our customers. That's where a web interface, MI, some kind of reporting on that data set will be absolutely essential.
Okay, that sounds brilliant. Very exciting. Okay, Prasad, we have one more question from the floor, and this comes from Kimberly. And Kimberly is asking, are there any specific industries that you're specifically looking to start with in terms of establishing the traceability?
Very tricky question.
Well, your use case, you suggested the tea industry, so maybe that's one.
Right. That's what I mean. So you need to look at the sectors and the industries where we have our initial use cases. So we've chosen to put the tea industry on the IMDA site as the initial sector and industry. But we also know that the palm oil sector, or for that matter, any natural resource sector is interesting. There are some sectors that have very interesting and complex supply chain. I would use car manufacturing as another example that we have looked into. So for instance, I mean, if you use Tesla as a classic case, they produce electric cars, which is supposed to be great for the environment. But is every element of their supply chain equally great for the environment, including the creation of the electric batteries? So I think over time, every sector will be applicable, but we have domain expertise in a few of these sectors, and we know that because we have done some non-blockchain work and research in those areas. We've given one example on the site. We've talked about a couple of more here. So we will be exploring those initial areas where we think there is immediate kind of impact. But over time, we would see this expanding to every industry and sector that we work with. It will be mostly in the manufacturing, logistics, and distribution areas, needless to say, but over time, I think it might go into some of the other sectors as well.
Thank you, Prasad. That's a very brilliant answer. I can imagine Mr. Elon Musk getting really excited about your platform once it's developed. And thank you very much, Prasad from Fidelity International. Thank you for your time. A great showcase of your business challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prasad. Thank you.